This is the Puckipuppy Bulldog. It's a long-range, dual-battery e-bike. I've had this bike for a few months now, and I've had the opportunity to really put it through the ringer. When I posted my initial video with my first impression of this bike, there was snow on the ground. You can check out that video here or here. I never know which corner. Anyway, it's one of the corners, there's a link. You'll also find a link in the description. My original video, I was playing around with it in the snow, which was a lot of fun. But now that it's dry and warm, let's see what this bike can really do. In this video, I'm gonna do two things. One, I'm gonna do the ultimate real-world range test. This range test is taking this bike out for what it's intended, an overnight bike packing trip. And then after that, I'll go over some details on what my experience has been with this bike over the last few months. There's some important nuggets there that you'll want to be sure not to miss. When Puckipuppy first reached out to me about testing out the Bulldog, the first thing I thought of was, can I take it e-bike packing? So I'm an e-bike packing virgin. I've been bike packing for over a decade, but this is my first time bike packing on an e-bike. And to properly test it, I've decided I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna ride it until I'm about 50% battery, camp for the night, and then turn around and come back. So I'm not gonna plug in anywhere. I don't have a charger with me. If this doesn't work out, well, I'm dead in the water. But the theory being, if I go mostly uphill day one and go 50% battery, I should be fine coming back. I started out trying in PAS level 1, and that was just way too slow. PAS level 1 took me 10 miles an hour. So I'm going PAS level 2, which is 15 miles an hour. As the grade picks up, it does slow down. I figure that's a pretty realistic range. Most people aren't gonna ride in PAS level 1 anyway. The idea is go until the battery reaches halfway, stop wherever I am. So probably stealth camping, we'll see where I end up. Also, there's one other factor. We have to see how far I can actually make it. This saddle is horribly uncomfortable. It's enormous. And at first glance, it looks super comfy. You first sit on it and it's like sitting on a couch. But there's just this big bulbous knob that's right between my legs that it's causing some chafing. I'm only 10 miles in and it's already pretty uncomfortable. I'm in it for the long haul. We'll see how long I can make it. And hopefully I can make it to 50% battery and do the full test. So far, it's a little odd. Taking a bike that is heavier than any of my bike packing bikes ever fully loaded, this thing's 85 pounds without anything on it, and strapping more stuff on, it's a pretty unwieldy beast at this point. I went fairly light because the bike is already so heavy. Also, with the frame design, with those dual batteries, there's really nowhere that I can strap traditional bags. So there's a frame triangle that I could put a frame bag in, but it'd have to be fully custom in order to fit, because I need some seriously long Velcro straps. So I'm using the rack. I've strapped a bag onto the back, and then I have a top tube bag that I had to jerry-rig some straps to get that to work. And then I have a traditional front roll as well. Oh, and 2 feed bags, so those work just fine. Beautiful day. I'm heading out on the Palouse Cascades Trail. Just finished the Snoqualmie Valley Trail, so hopping on the Palouse Cascades, heading out as far as that goes. So it's a rail trail, rail grade climb, nothing too strenuous for the bike. It's really what the bike is designed for. It's full suspension, but really it's optimized for nice, gentle gravel paths. So far, I'm 17 miles in and used 1/6 of the battery, or batteries, I guess. That seems possibly a little quick, but anyway, we'll see where I get to when I'm halfway. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. About 43 miles in, 2,500 feet of climbing, all in PAS 2, and right around the 50% mark. I think I'm just shy of using 50% of the battery. I should have no problem making it back tomorrow. Tomorrow is almost all downhill. I expect I'll be doing pretty well. We'll see how the battery does overnight. Hopefully it doesn't get too cold and doesn't drain the battery. That would suck. I did notice that PAZ 2 kind of slowed down as the battery drained. I'm not sure if it was the motor heating or what, but even on level sections, I was only hitting 14 miles an hour instead of 15 later in the ride. So that was interesting. One thing that's a little awkward is I had to bring a cache battery with me to charge my phone and my camera gear. Seems with an e-bike, I know some have USB ports to charge things. Hauling 2 huge batteries up the mountain seems like having the ability to charge my devices off it would be lovely. That's a missed opportunity there. Also, any bike with this kind of range, it needs bottle cages, or bottle cage mounts specifically. So the only option that they provided was a bottle cage that you can mount to the handlebars. There's no mounts within the frame itself. So I mounted 2 cages onto the fork, and then I have 2 feed bags, so I kept 1 bottle in the feed bag. You're not going very far without the ability to carry water. So when you're talking about a long range bike, which the Puckipuppy Bulldog definitely is, it would be nice to be able to have some places to carry water. Otherwise, the bike performed well. As predicted, the saddle was pretty darn uncomfortable for me. Otherwise, everything's going well, and yeah, we'll see how things go in the morning and see how the battery's looking. Good morning. It's the moment of truth. Let's see how the battery did overnight. So it dropped down to the low 40s, so not ideal for battery health, but not horrible. Let's see what happens here. All right, battery level completely unchanged. So it survived the night without any issues, which is fantastic. I'm 70 miles in and just dropped down to my last bar of battery. So there's 6 bars, I have 1 bar left. Actually it just jumped up to 2, so I must be playing with that transition right now. I have 10 to 15 miles to go to get back to the car. I'm down to like 12 miles an hour in PAZ 2. That's definitely the slowest I've ever descended down from the pass. Normally on a regular bike, I'm going 20 miles an hour plus, and I've been going 12. I've got 1 mile to go, so I've gone 39 miles today. Mostly downhill. I think it's like 200 feet of climbing today. I'm starting to get a little concerned. This is the first time I've run the battery this low. It is flashing 1 bar. It's all flat, so I have no downhill remaining. It's been flat for probably the last 5 miles or so. I'm still in PAZ 2. I figure I'll hold it there as long as I can. Hopefully I'll make it the last mile. See if I can totally kill it. We'll see. So yesterday I was impressed that I made it 40 miles all uphill on half the battery. And I'm honestly pretty damn surprised that I only made it 40 miles today all downhill. I think I had 200 feet of elevation total, elevation gain. I don't get it. It doesn't compute for me. Now the battery's not totally dead, but it had slowed down to roughly 10 miles an hour and was flashing. So I certainly could have gotten a few more miles out of it, but nothing of significance. So yeah, I'd say 80 miles in PAZ 2 pretty much is the limit. I'm totally flabbergasted. I only made it 40 miles today, predominantly downhill. So did I learn anything? What's the ultimate range? Well, PAZ 2 seems 80 miles is the range, but 130 miles, is that achievable? PAZ 1, maybe in the most ideal of circumstances. I think that's probably a stretch, but if it's downhill in a tailwind, sure. But the range is fantastic. The 30 amp hours, that's a lot of battery, and yeah, it can take you pretty far. All right, so the range test, I was able to get 80 miles out of this puppy, pun intended, and you can obviously get more. So PAZ 2 was a good compromise. It was a speed fast enough that I was willing to accept it. I certainly would have loved to have sped up and gone faster, but Paths 2 was a tolerable speed throughout the trip. For you keen-eyed viewers, if you've seen the first video, you'll notice there's no longer fenders on this. I took them off, and that was mostly just trying to make it easier to put on my rack and save the tiniest bit of weight. They really weigh nothing, especially compared to the overall bike weight. But I had to modify the rear fender because the fender would bounce and rattle up against the rack, and it was the most obnoxious sound ever. So using zip ties, I was able to zip tie the rods holding the rear fender to the rack, and that stabilized it and got rid of that clunking sound. But ultimately taking them off because I didn't need them anyway, so that ended up being the ultimate solution. One issue that I found that I'm shocked that I didn't notice this when I went over the bike entirely after it arrived is one of the bolts holding the rack is completely stripped out. So the riv nut in the frame, it's come out so you can't tighten or loosen the bolt, and it's not providing any structural integrity. So the rack is actually held on with 3 bolts instead of 4. Shocked I didn't discover it earlier. It hasn't really impacted anything, but it's not something I can fix on my own. So how about this suspension? So it has front and rear suspension, which is really nice for those gravel paths. A nice smooth rail trail. It takes out those little unexpected bumps. But overall the suspension is pretty poor on this. If you take it over any real bumps, I took it on roots and rocks, and it would just clunk and rattle, and it was a fairly harsh ride. But taking it over small bumps that I encountered on a rail trail, it was totally good, and in fact excelled in those scenarios. On a fat bike, suspension in general is a bit overkill. The best thing you can do to improve the ride is let out a ton of air pressure from these tires when you first get it. They jack it up with some crazy tire pressure. I've been running this at 10 PSI, and that's about right. These Logan brakes, I found they were awesome. They provided ample stopping power, and this is a heavy bike. Getting this bike to stop is no small task. These brakes worked great. Charging this bike can be a bit annoying because of the 2 batteries. The 2 batteries are great for range, but when it comes to charging, it's a little annoying because you have to charge them independently. So it ships with 1 charger, meaning you have to charge these batteries serially. It comes with a 2 amp charger. Each battery is 15 amp hours. So that's 7.5 hours to charge each battery. That's gonna take a while. Now, I really wish there was a single port on the bike that I could plug a charger into and it would manage charging both of them. But if you want the range, going 2 batteries is the ultimate way to go. Yes, you could buy a second battery for any e-bike and carry that with you, but this gives you a place to carry it. You don't have to swap them out. That's pretty awesome. It drains from both batteries equally, meaning it's not gonna drain one and then switch over to the second. It pulls from both and works its way down. So it's nice even draw, but charging, it is that serial problem. Now there's no getting around the fact that this is a big bike. It's big and it's heavy. So if you're over 6 feet tall, the bike fits you fairly well, except the seat post is too short. So I found that at the max extension, I still needed more seat post. So keep that in mind. I'm 6'2" and I'm a lot of legs. So I have a 36-inch inseam and wish there was about another probably inch of seat post on that. Now I found shorter riders, they struggle to straddle this top tube. This top tube is quite high. Keep that in mind. It's kind of a sweet spot of probably 5'8" to 6 foot is the perfect. And if you're anywhere below or above that, it will work, but there will be some compromises. Well, I've taken this bike on streets, on rail trails, on single track, fairly aggressive single track, even snow, and I have a pretty good idea of where it excels. So paved roads, if you want this as a commuter, it's fantastic. If you want it for smooth gravel roads and rail trails, again, it is perfect. It really does shine there. Where it really starts to struggle is on that single track, trying to accelerate and slow down and maneuver sharp corners and obstacles where you may have to lift your front tire. It's really not made for that. Don't buy this thinking, hey, it's a full suspension bike, I can go shred my local downhill trail. No, you can't. It is not that kind of bike at all. But you can go shred your local rail trail and have a blast. That's what it's made for. So I had a hard time with this huge seat. It is super comfortable at first, and I didn't notice any issues on shorter rides. But the second I did that range test, 40 miles a day, it was uncomfortable. It was too much saddle for me. Shorter rides, I find it super comfortable. Just sit back, relax, and just motor over anything. It's pretty nice there. At $2,000, this bike isn't cheap, but it does still fall into that budget e-bike category. It's also the most expensive bike Puckipuppy makes, other than a trike, so it's on the high end of their bikes and probably the high end of the budget category, but the build quality, everything kind of fits in with other Puckipuppy bikes. So it's budget focused, but still good quality.